Hi, I'm Nicholas Lodge. Welcome to this video where I'll be showing you how to use my new product from my Nicholas Lodge collection by Katy Designs. In this video, I will be showing and introducing you to my new large log slice mold. So this is my Nicholas Lodge collection by Katy Designs large log slice mold. So this looks like a piece of pizza, but it actually enables you to make a large, 8 to 10 inch circle to go on top of a larger cake. This accompaniments, which I will also be showing you, the medium log slice mold, which again can be used for smaller cakes and also for other projects. So I will be showing you, first of all, how to use my large log slice mold. Now, when using this, we're going to use this to create a tree stump effect. You can see it gives a really beautiful, realistic look to the top of a cake. You can also use this for other elements as well on the cake and also on a cake board. I'm then going to actually show you how to use the continuous bark mold from Katy, which is an existing product, but how I integrate the two together to give you a very nice natural look. Now, when we are making the log, you can use, I'm using here modeling chocolate. So this is natural white modeling chocolate, which you can obviously make yourself, or you can buy commercial modeling chocolate. This is made from white chocolate, so it's going to give you that creamy color. You can also use sugar paste or rolled fondant. You can either buy an ivory or cream color, or just use an ivory or cream coloring to color rolled fondant or sugar paste. But when I'm using, for example, on cakes like this, I often like to use the modeling chocolate because it does taste much nicer. There is another video I have produced which is going to be showing you how to use these same products on, for example, little mini bûche de Noël, the Yule log, larger Yule logs, also cookies. And again, I would recommend using modeling chocolate if you have that available to use. Now, I have here 250 grams of modeling chocolate. And modeling chocolate, I said, this is just the natural color it comes in. So I've got 250 grams of, as I said, 250 grams of modeling chocolate here. And this would be enough to make, when you are doing this, the top of this, you can use this up to about a 10 inch, about a 26 centimeter cake. All right, you could even go bigger, but this amount, 250 grams, would be for between about an 8 and 10 inch cake, about a 20 centimeter and 26 centimeter cake. But you'll see how this works. Now, with modeling chocolate is a little heat sensitive. So if you do have hot hands, you can, when you're working with it, if it starts to get soft, you can just pop it in the refrigerator or cooler. The nice thing about this product as well is if this was a cake, you can put this in the refrigerator as well, because modeling chocolate doesn't sweat like sugar paste does. So it does have a lot of applications and works really, really well for, as I said, for cakes. So when you're doing things like a Yule log, you could refrigerate that if you wanted to. So I'm going to use a little corn flour or cornstarch here, or you can also use some icing sugar, powdered sugar. I'm going to roll this out. I'm just using a small rolling pin because I don't need this to be. And I'm just going to, when I'm rolling this, I'm rolling and turning, just trying to keep this in a sort of roundish shape. So because this is going to be the top of the tree slice, and then you see what I do is I use my rolling pin now, and I'm literally just stretching with my rolling pin. So I hold my rolling pin like this, and I'm now stretching just to give me the shape I need. So once you've rolled this out, if you do have any air bubbles, we're going to use an acupuncture needle. This is an acupuncture needle. Just going to go in there, and that will get rid of any air bubbles into here. All right, we're going to, so using this technique, you're just going to go over the surface. So this makes sure that it's even thickness all the way over the surface. You could also, of course, use a sugar paste fondant smoother as well. So I've rolled this out, and as you can see, I've rolled this out to, this is about 10 inches, about 25 centimeters, all right? But as I said, you can go bigger because you can just make the extra rings around the outside with a Dresden tool, so you can go larger than this. Now, with using this product, usually I would take a little tiny bit of vegetable fat, vegetable shortening, just put on my fingers like this, and just lightly rub over the surface here, mostly onto the large raised ridges. You're going to position this onto your paste like this, and I'm going to use an acrylic press. So this is a rectangle. You will see how I also use this for the when I do the continuous bark effect as well. So I'm just going to take that, just going to press this on the top. This helps to distribute the weight evenly. Just going to press this onto the top here, like so. I don't want to press too much where the edge is here. I'm coming just inside there, like so. Okay, so when we take this off, see how you're going to get this lovely effect. All right, now you're just going to line this up. So you're just looking for the rings. So you'll just sort of see where the rings are on the edge. Just going to line this up. And you're then going to do this a second time. Okay, just come around the edge here. And it doesn't matter, it's going to look a little bit because it's quite deep, the marks on the edge here. So this will be your second one, and then you're going to move on to your third one. But just line them up so the rings, so you see this will make a perfect, so 3 sections of this will make your perfect log slice. Okay, you're going to take this off. So that's how we're going to create the log slice. Now, if you were wanting to do a larger cake, like for example, about a 10-inch, about 25-centimeter cake, you can just use, for example, like your Dresden tool, and you can just go around the edge like this, and you can just make some additional rings around there. So this is designed so you can go larger if you wanted to. So you could even go up to like a 12-inch cake. Now, as I said, I've got 250 grams of paste here, but of course, if you wanted to, so you see how you can do that. And then using your tool here, your companion tool, you can just put in some additional marks coming from the outside here. I'm just showing you how you could make this larger if you wanted to. So this was designed for really up to a sort of about a 9-inch cake. But I said you can make this bigger if you need to, okay? So that's the first step. Now, what we're gonna now do is we're going to take a piece of cardboard. This is like a cake circle, the size of my cake, all right? So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna put just a little cornstarch onto that. I'm just gonna put this underneath my cake board like that, okay? If you're unsure about your positioning, you can just usually, as I said, you can use the rings. Just use that as a guide. Okay, so it's going to be in the middle here. And then I'm going to use my little scraper here. Make sure that looks sort of fairly central. There we go. I'm going to use my little scraper here. And what I'm going to do here is just with my little flexi scraper, I'm going to come around your edge here with the flexi scraper. You can also use here the little mini knife as well. Now, modeling chocolate, it doesn't have the same elasticity as fondant, okay? So if it does tear a little bit, you can just push it back. It's very, very forgiving and blends perfectly, okay? So you're just gonna push this back like that. And so this is gonna be cut to so this is the size of the top of my cake. So that's gonna be the first step. So I have my cake in the cooler, so I'm going to bring my cake out, and then I'm going to now put this on the top of the cake. So here I have a cake that's been ganached. Don't have to worry about it being really, really sharp edges or anything because we're doing, as I said, the type of design we're doing. I use my little flexi scraper. This is wonderful for putting on your ganache and buttercream onto cakes. This has come straight out of the fridge, so it's cold. So I could leave this for about 5 minutes at room temperature until the ganache becomes a little sticky, meaning that when you touch your finger, or alternatively, you can just lightly mist this with water. So I'm going to use just a spray bottle here. I'm just going to lightly mist my ganache with water. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take I'm going to slide this a little bit like a pizza. So think of like a pizza. I'm just going to slide this onto the top of the cake, like so. All right, so this will just come to your edge of your cake, like this, all right? And this is sort of how you would build this onto the top of the cake. Now, I'm going to use so if you have any areas, now of course this is all going to be dusted and painted and finished off, but if you do have any areas where you have like a little thin area, where you maybe press a little bit, you can also just fill that in with just like a little tiny piece of modeling chocolate. But remember, modeling chocolate, when you start holding it in your hands, it's going to start to get softer. So it's really nice to sculpt with. And of course, the cardboard, this was the cake here. So you can also just, if you need to sort of do any areas where you're just going to pull this to the edge, because this is going to fit onto the cake. And we can make just going to make a little sausage here. Because of course, once you get your ganache on your cake, it's going to become a little bit bigger than the cardboard. So I'm just going to put just a little tiny bit of, and I've cut this cake at an angle. These were, as I said, like, you know, topsy-turvy style cakes or crooked cakes or wonky cakes. You can buy cake pans, cake tins for those, but I just actually cut my cake at an angle. And when I'm often doing a cake like this, I like this because the elevation, it sort of comes flat. But of course, you can do this totally onto a straight one. And I'm just going to make some marks onto here. And you see that's going to just sort of blend in with the rest of the cake here. Okay, so just going to work your edge of your, so you're going to get this nice tree log effect. All right. Now, once we've got the tree log, the top of the cake done, we're going to then be moving on to the, I'm going to be moving on to the side. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you how to do this one. Now, this is the medium log slice. So this is not an embosser, this is actually a mold, so a little bit different. And here I use 85 grams of modeling chocolate or paste. So what I do there is I'm going to, and you'll also see in my second supplement video where I show how to do little Yule logs and mini Yule logs, the bûche de Noël, and cookies and things, how I use this also as like an embosser, and lots of fun things you can do with this. So all you're going to do here is you're going to roll this out, and then you're just going to put this into the mold here. Just think of this a little bit like a tart shell. Now, modeling chocolate doesn't stick, all right? Modeling chocolate won't stick to the silicone because it's naturally is an oil-based product, all right, from the chocolate. But as I said, when you use sugar paste, you can use, of course, you can use your little bit of vegetable fat, vegetable shortening into here. And again, we're going to just take the press. So with my press here, I'm just going to press this onto the top here. This helps to distribute the pressure onto there. Okay, and then we're just going to flex the mold back. And it's going to come out here. And you see, this is going to give you your log, the top here. Now, this is used for, this one can be used for a 5-inch cake. So if I bring in this cake here, you'll see how, so this cake here, this is a 5-inch, about 12.5 centimeter cake. So this is made to fit a 5-inch cake or smaller. So if you were doing a smaller cake than this, you can actually cut this with a round cookie cutter and you could use it for a smaller size cake. So there are, as I said, so this is the medium log slice, okay? And so that one, you can't really make bigger than that. But as I said, obviously there are two different options there, depending on what size project you're working on. So for the continuous tree bark, this mold is called the continuous tree bark because it is designed with obviously a natural edge, which means when you're using this around the cake, it's going to just sort of slot in a bit like a sort of a flooring system. So you don't really have a defined line. A lot of molds have usually a square edge, which means it's difficult to disguise the gap. So the join or seam. So anyway, so when we use this, so you can use modeling chocolate like I've just used on the top, a milk chocolate one, or usually what I'd recommend because then you can dust darker colors on top. Or of course you could take white modeling chocolate, color it brown. You can also use sugar paste rolled fondant. So actually I have here, I've just mixed equal amounts of white and brown sugar paste or rolled fondant. And what that's going to do is going to give me this nice milk chocolate color. Okay, so you're going to get this sort of milk chocolate color, because if not, it's going to be too dark. In judging competitions, that's the one thing I would say. A lot of people, when they make wood, always make it too dark. So we want more of a milk chocolate color. Now, the other thing is with a lot of the Katy Sue molds, all right, we recommend you add Tylose powder or CMC. When you're doing this log, I don't use any, if I'm using sugar paste or rolled fondant, I don't add any Tylose or CMC. There's no need. Because this mold will release very easily just with straight sugar paste. On some of the other continuous, like the Continuous Quilter by Kerry Griffiths, you do have to add Tylose or CMC, so you need to watch the videos on that. But when you're doing the tree log slice and also the tree bark, I just use straight fondant or sugar paste because you want it to be able to cut through and eat it. It doesn't want to be hard, all right? So anyway, so we're going to take your paste. Now, I have here 100 grams, okay? So 100 grams will be what we need to fill the mold. So 100 grams, which I have here, okay? And so what we're going to do, so this is just white and brown sugar paste together. I'm going to just take this, and all I'm going to do here is going to roll this out into a rectangle. Okay, and then we're just going to take this. Again, I'm going to take just a little bit of vegetable shortening. Just going to put this into the mold here. All right, and you're going to just place the paste into the mold. It's going to bring this in. Again, I'm going to use a cosmetic sponge for this. Now, some people roll it. I actually find that if you roll it into the molds, it often stretches and distorts. So I actually prefer to use my cosmetic sponge technique. So once I bring this into the mold here, so this will be level. So again, we're going to take now our acrylic rectangle. And you see this is designed so this will just sort of press on the top. So this will fill this up perfectly level. You see, so you're going to get, this is also going to help to make sure you get all the detail onto there. Now, how I use this, all right, when you're doing a cake or when you're doing a cake board, what you're going to do is going to measure the depth of your cake. Now, as you can see, this is actually made, this mold is made, so this is actually about 14.5 centimeters, all right, which is about just over 5.5 inches tall. So you can use this for up to a 5.5 inch cake. All right, when we're doing the log slice, this type of cake, of course, you have this is a different depths coming around, okay? And so when you're using this, or when you're using this on a cake board, which I'm also going to show you, when you're creating like a log slice cake board, of course, you just decide on how deep you want this to be. So you then would measure, okay? So I'm going to measure this, going to do the back part of my cake. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure my back part of my cake here. So this is actually going to be about 4 inches. All right, so I need this to be about 4 inches tall, right, about 10 centimeters. Of course, if you're just doing a straight cake, a regular cake, you just would obviously have a 4-inch dummy of cake or dummy, 5-inch, whatever size you're doing, okay? So what we're going to do here is now, how I do this is I don't take it out of the mold, all right? I found these are some little tips I'm going to share with you, but it gives a very nice natural look to the top of it. So what I do is so if you want this 4 inches, so I'm going to measure here 4 inches, measure here 4 inches, and I'm going to use my little flexi scraper here, and I'm going to just sort of press in with my flexi scraper. Now we don't want to use a knife here, all right? And the reason why I'm using the flexi scraper is it's not going to damage the mold, okay? And then what we would do is you just will then take your paste, all right, and then you take the top part of the paste and you're just going to tear it. Now you see what you're going to then do is you're going to get this almost like this torn edge. And what this does, when you then use this on your cake, you see how you're going to get this nice natural edge to your log, all right? It's not going to have like a cut edge. And the reason why I wouldn't recommend taking it out of the mold and then cutting it is you're often going to squash it, so you're going to lose your definition. Now, when we are using this onto a cake, all right, so when we're doing this onto a cake, what I do there is you're then just going to take this out of the mold, all right? So this is the top, and what I do is I put it onto a piece of fun foam, all right? So I'm putting it upside down onto a piece of fun foam. So this will be the bottom. This is going to be the top where we just almost tore it, so you get this natural edge there. And you can do this, this way, or you can do it long ways. And you can, of course, cut the fun foam down as well. But fun foam stays flexible. And that is the reason why I wouldn't do this on the acrylic, all right? But if you were doing this, as I said, you can also use just like a piece of thick card. But as I said, the fun foam works well. And you see, then what we do, now this, because this is out and we've got lights on, this is softening down the buttercream a little bit now, the ganache, okay? So this is going to stick, but just remember, if you are doing this onto an actual cake, you can just also lightly spray it with a little bit of water as well, all right? And then what you then do is you're going to take your paste like this, and you're just going to just flex that around, and you see then the paste will come around here, like so. And you can just use your scraper to press that on. You don't want to use your finger because you don't want to get fingerprints onto there. Okay, and that's going to give you a torn edge. Now, when we're doing a cake like this, because of course it is angled, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use my scissors here, and I'm just going to just trim that little edge part off there. So, but you see how you have this nice natural edge. And then what I do is I'm just going to use my companion tool, and I'm just going to just sort of like here and there, I'm just going to pull it into the edge. So you're going to get this nice, as you can see, this nice integration into the edge of your cake, all right? So that's sort of how it will sit. Now then the next piece, when you do the next piece, you're going to generally, will work this way. I generally go to the right, because your next piece is made so it's going to fit in. So you just take the next, you butt it up against it, and you just continue around. And when you continued all the way around, you're just going to obviously trim. Usually you're going to start at the back, and then when we get here, you'll just trim the last piece to fit into the space, all right? And you can of course blend in, but because of the design of the, obviously the bark is quite heavy, it fits in perfectly well, all right? It works really, really well. And you just would continue all the way around the cake like that. Now, when you're using this for a cake board, all right, so if I was doing this on a cake board, which I have here, I'm just actually going to put this back into the, this was actually there like that, wasn't it? There we go. Just going to put this back into the mold. So when you're doing a cake board, so a couple of things when you're doing this type of board, I have a little cake that will be going in here later on, but you could do this on, for example, last year in Canada, I did a cake carnival with Chrissy Boone and Susan Trianos and Natalie Sidesurf and and Avalon Yarns, and we did a larger, we had a 14-inch cake board. So you can do this on any size. I'm just showing you a small board. So what you do there is you want to stick some feet onto your board, all right? So you want to put some feet to raise this up. And what I've done is I actually just took some foam boards and glued them together, or you could use a drum type of cake board. And then what I've done is I've done the top exactly the same way as I just showed the top of the cake. And then you see what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these pieces coming around the around here like that. Now how you do those is you're going to just measure the depth you want those. So these pieces here, I made actually 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters here, about 3/4 of an inch wide, okay? So what you would then do is when you fill the mold up, you just work from the bottom and you'd mark the 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters. So what that's gonna do is gonna give you your, so that means you get actually like 5 or 6 strips depending on how wide you're gonna make this. But see, just using your little scraper works really, really well. You just tear this apart. So you see how you're going to get this sort of rough, so the top edge would be, have this nice natural look to it. And then all I do here is just turn this over. I put some piping gel. So I'm using piping gel just with a little needle tip applicator here. I'm going to put a little bit of piping gel. And then you can use your little scraper. Just going to go over the top of this with my little scraper here, like so. And then what you then do is you're going to attach this. So you see this is going to be elevated from the, because if this touched the table, when you move it, you're going to damage it. And so then the idea is you're just going to take this piece here. Just going to just put this on. It's going to come around. And this shows you like would be the same on the cake. So when you come to the back here, where you come to where you finish it off, you can just use your little scraper. I'm just going to just position this into place here like so. And it's going to just push this in like so. And that's going to give you, just make sure you've got enough gel on there so it sticks. And again, we're just going to take your, so what I'm going to do here is where you have these like the top part of there, you see how I'm just pulling those in. So this just helps to blend it onto the cake board like so. All right, I'm going to be showing you how I do the coloring and things on that shortly. So you're just going to just put that on, but that is how you create log slice cake board. All right, and so of course, usually when I do most of my cakes, I cut out a cavity for my cake to sit in. So this particular cake is going to be offset. That's going to go into here. But of course, if you're doing a traditional like wedding cake or groom's cake, you could of course do the right in the middle. But then I usually just put a cardboard cut and then I remove the excess fondant, sugar paste, or modeling chocolate. And that is how I would do, as I said, a cake board using this bark effect, all right, the continuous bark mold. So this means when you're doing a cake board, you're going to have lots of approximately 2 centimeter, about 3/4 inch strips. That's, of course, you can make this more shallow, you can make it deeper here, but just remember you will need to put little feet underneath. If you don't have feet like this, these are little stick-on feet from the hardware store. You can also use, for example, a smaller cake board stuck underneath a piece of foam board, something just to elevate it up. Okay. But that gives you that nice natural look. But you can see how having that natural edge there makes a big difference. You see how you get that natural, almost torn edge onto there, and then using the acrylic press. You know, this works wonderful. All right, so this is specifically perfect size for this. You know, it gives you that nice impression. And as I said, that's the way how I do the continuous bark. So you would continue your cake until you've got your cake all the way around, all right? So, and usually when I do this, most of the time when I'm doing this type of cake, of course, if this is a real cake I was showing you here, I would there's a cardboard underneath there, which is 8 inches. And then once you've got your bark effect on there, you generally just let this set. Okay, so you'd let the fondant sugar paste dry a little bit. Modeling chocolate, I would often just put this back in the fridge to firm it up a little bit, then bring it out and let it just dry a little bit. And then we'll be ready to move on to the coloring. That's going to, then once you get it colored, I would then usually move it onto the board. It's going to stay on, so you don't end up getting dusting powder all on your fondant covered cake board. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I color the log slice. Now, there's many ways of doing this. If you're comfortable with an airbrush, you could totally airbrush this. I generally don't use an airbrush, so I mostly use dusting powders. So I'm going to use, this color is gray, and I've got some cornflour mixed in with, cornstarch mixed in with this. So I've just made like a paler gray. And so what I'm going to do here is just going to just brush, just following the circles. So I'm just going to brush this, but just going to, as I said, don't load too much color onto your brush. I'm just going to just work around the... Now this doesn't have to be perfect because you want this more natural effect on here. But you see how I'm just going to just sort of highlight the circles onto here. So it's going to come around. And you can actually just rotate your turntable when you're doing this. Of course, when you're doing this on a flat top cake, you can just rotate the turntable. But this is just got some cornstarch into it because I don't want it to be too dark. Of course, there's lots of different types of wood and color, you know, so again, you can have a look on the internet as well of different types of wood slices because, you know, different woods, pecan wood and oak wood. And of course, your creamy color could be a little bit more yellowy. But this is a nice, the color I typically use, just this sort of gray color here. So I'm just going to do a little tiny bit more here. Just going to come around. So just giving the brown here, like so, okay? So I've just got those, so that's in gray. Then I'm going to take now some brown. So this is again, chocolate brown, and this is brown with some cornstarch in it. So you can see I've lightened this with the, and you just try it out. If it's not quite, if it's a little bit too dark, then you just add more cornflour to it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to just sort of cut from the, don't load too much color on your brush, but I'm just going to just cut into the, from the edge here, just going to make the, like the lines. But remember, this doesn't want to be too, so this color doesn't want to be too dark here, but you're just going to come in on the main lines here. So just see how I'm just brushing in. So I'm using a flat brush, angled brush here. So this is going to sort of give you the, but don't load too much color onto the brush. And just going to work this into the top. So you see how I'm just bringing this in like this. Okay, you see how it's sort of starting to come together now. So then I'm going to then take some, we're going to use some, this is going to be full strength chocolate. And then I'm just going to sort of bring that in where you have, where you get the sort of the indents coming in here. Just going to use the darker chocolate here. So just going to use the full strength chocolate. And also with the full strength chocolate, I'm just going to go around the very edge. So you're just going to, just where the brown and the cream color integrate, I'm just going to use the chocolate. This is the full strength chocolate I'm using here, just to come around your edge here, because that will just help to sort of give a nice natural transition between the two colors. So this is with the chocolate brown here, like that. You can see here, like on the cake board, it's exactly the same. So same sort of concept on the cake board. Okay. Just sort of have a look as you go there. There we go. All right. So then I'm going to use, going to take some gray now. So this is the gray, but no corn flour, no cornstarch into this. So this is just going to be straight gray. And you can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the lines here. And so you're going in the sort of deep crevices and indentations. And I really find this sort of gives it's a nice color to use the gray on top of the brown. Maybe a color you wouldn't think of, but it works really well. And so this one I'm going to just show you the sort of the basics of doing the coloring. Okay, so you see how you're just going to just sort of, so you just get that nice natural look onto there. And then when we're doing like the cake board, so the cake board will also be done. So this is the fresh piece that I have there. So again, I'm just going to put some gray onto your cake board as well. So of course, normally you would do the top, then you do the sides, and then let everything dry. I'm just going to put a little bit of chocolate brown just around here where they join. A lot of people are comfortable with an airbrush. So I said if you're comfortable with an airbrush, that's something you could totally do. So that would be how you would do the coloring part. So this is just really the base coloring. And then once we've got the base coloring done, just gonna move the napkins out of the way. And then what I'm going to do is going to use a steamer. So what I actually do is I'm just going to steam the wood. So I'm using a small closed steamer. And I found that, as I said, because you don't want it to be too shiny, so you wouldn't use like a spray lacquer on this. So generally I'm going to use a steamer, and I'm just going to gently steam, all right, the surface of the fondant. And then what's going to happen is it's going to just sort of like give it a more natural look, all right? So it's going to got your color on there. Now just remember, it's really important that when you are at this stage, if you have any areas you didn't color, you make sure you color, because once you steam it, if you came back and realized you didn't color something, you need to let it dry for about 2 hours, and then you would then, of course, once you've done that, you then would just then re-steam it, all right? Because if you try and steam it. So the steamer is now coming, the steamer is coming out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just gently steam the side of the cake here, like this, all right? And then I'm going to just tip the cake and just going to just gently steam the top. Now you be careful, because with a steamer, you don't want to tip it because the boiling water will come onto your cake. So you're just going to just hold your cake up a little bit, and then just, as I said, just steam that lightly. Now, as you can see, it will look quite shiny when you first do that, and it will then just have a nice natural look to it. When you're doing the cake board, again, would be the same. So here, I'm just gonna steam the side of the cake. Then on your cake board, you can then just lift the cake board up. Just gonna lightly steam it. And that will be your cake board. and then you're just going to put those to dry. So that is how we would do the dusting and the wood grain, wood bark effect on our cake. So adding some extra elements to the bark. So here, as you can see, I've gone in with the small companion tool, and you can make some little like indentations. You see how I've just got like just some natural imperfections in the wood, so it's not too perfect. You can also use the needle tip there. You can make some little holes into the paste in the modeling chocolate or the fondant. And also do that with a Dresden tool as well, but these are all actually done with the companion tool. So that just gives a nice sort of natural look to it. And now I'm going to talk a bit about like doing roots, and then also how to do like moss and some other different elements. Now when you're doing roots, you can take some the brown leftover paste, and what you're going to do is going to just bring in the cake here, and just sort of decide on where you want to do the root. Okay, so I'm going to sort of have a root come in here. And normally the roots, you're going to have them sort of blended onto the side of the cake and then sort of coming down onto the cake board. You can see this one here was quite large, so I sort of just blended it up onto the side of the cake. But this is just an option that you can add to your cake. So I'm going to take this, and then what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to just use just going to cut this into, just going to make some cuts into here, and obviously we'll trim this as needed. And then what I'm going to do there is I'm going to use I'm just going to sort of roll that with so you're going to get that nice sort of natural look to so you see how you're going to sort of squash that, so you're going to get that sort of bark effect. And then I will put a little bit of piping gel onto here. Okay, just going to put a little bit of piping gel onto the side of this. And then we're going to take the piece here. Just use a paintbrush or your finger just to blend that over. And then I'm going to take this, and this is going to go onto the side of the cake. And just going to sort of blend this onto the side. So it's going to blend. So I've already got some of the grass on here. Normally you would wait till you get all of this done, and then I'm going to show you how I do the grass effect. And then you can use you can blend this on with your. Now when you're using modeling chocolate, this is fondant. The top of this is modeling chocolate, this is fondant. But when you're using modeling chocolate is great because you actually completely seamlessly blends on. But you see how I'm just blending this on here? I'm going to just sort of make some deeper lines onto here. So just going to blend this up to the top of the cake here, like so. So just going to sort of blend this on. You can just trim your roots down as you need to. Remember, everything wants to stay within the perimeter of the board because your perimeter of your board. And then again, you can take your wood grain, and see this is where you then would just use this technique. So you see how you're just going to roll this onto the cake, and then that's going to help to give you that sort of nice natural look. But just going to use it. So just going to blend this on, and then so that's sort of how you would do the roots. And you can use your little companion tool here again, just to sort of work the pieces there, and then just attach those down with a little bit of piping gel if you need some more piping gel. So here I've got a 2-tier version of the cake there. So this cake actually, this bottom tier, that's actually a 9-inch size cake. So of course that was done, and both of these were done with obviously the mat, and then this is a 6-inch cake, all right? So you've got obviously you both using the mats there. Then you would then take some of your dusts. So you're going to take some of your dust we have here. I'm going to put just a little bit of the gray color onto there. So a little bit of the. And then of course you would just then, once you've done that, you would just re-steam that part, because now we've got so I'm just going to re-steam where we've done the little root there. so it will all sort of match. I'm just going to just steam that. This is a little travel steamer. I mean, you can use a tea kettle as well, but I like this because it's sort of a gentle steam. So I'm just going to just gently steam that, so then everything will match. Okay. And that's how you would do that. And then you're really best to let sort of everything dry a little bit. So let everything dry for a couple of hours. And then when I come back, I'm going to show you how I do the moss, and then how I do the sort of like the moss effect on the cake. Just a couple of different options there for Z natural effects. So for the grass, I'm going to use, this is just a green sugar paste or rolled fondant. And I've just colored this with some green, a sort of mossy green color. And what I'm going to do here is going to roll this out. So where you have, of course, on the front of the cake here, this is basically the front of the cake, I've got quite a like a wide area. So of course you take more fondant and make it a little bit wider. Here on the back, because I've offset this, don't want to make this too thin. Here, like so. And then you're just going to just take your, so this is going to go onto the back area here. It's going to take a little bit of piping gel. So I'm just going to use some piping gel here. I'm just going to brush some piping gel onto my cake board. You'll see how the dust, now this particular cake was built directly onto the board, so you'll see how I dusted this on the board, but you see how you're getting a little bit of gray because you're naturally going to get the dust coming down. And then what you do there is you're going to just sort of take the paste here. It's going to work this around the bottom of the cake. And you can use your Dresden tool here. All right, so just make sure you push that into the bottom of the cake like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my, this is my Calla Lily Flower Pro Calla Lily texture. This makes the most wonderful grass texture. So you're just going to just go over the surface of this with the Calla Lily, and you see how it's going to give you that really nice natural grass. Now remember, some of this has been painted, so you'll see how that all comes together, but you're just going to just work this through. And then I'm just going to cut. So just going to cut where the root is. So it's going to be where the root is there. So just going to just press that paste down here. Make sure it comes right the way to the edge. And as you go, you can take your little mini knife, or you can use your little flexi scraper. As I said, this has got so many uses. This is wonderful for smoothing sugar paste and fondant when you're doing cakes. I use this for ganaching, all sorts of things. And then you can use your, and then what I like to do to get this all a really nice natural edge there, I'm just using my companion tool, and I'm just going to use the companion tool, and you see how I'm actually just using the companion tool and just pulling this up onto the edge. You're going to get this almost like grass-like texture. So just going to just continue around there like that. So just going to give this nice natural edge. You can just sort of push the paste into there. You can use your, and then your like areas where it's difficult to get in with the mat, you can just use your veining tool just to sort of texture that. And I'm just going to put a couple of little areas in here. So generally I would use piping gel or corn syrup here, just to sort of work this in. So you see how I'm just going to just work that in. But if you let the roots dry, on the other part of the cake, I let this dry for a few hours. So it's better to let the roots dry, because then you'll be able to, they won't move around. Then we have another little area here. This just shows you how you can, because of course sometimes when we do this sort of like a wood effect, we could do this like a little bit more like I'm doing here with a natural board, or of course you could also just sort of have this as just like a wood slice with a rustic, semi-naked, naked type cake on there, or of course you could use, again, just gonna texture. This also gives you, on my Calla Lily video for Flower Pro, I should talk about this. If you take this and you actually put some, you put a piece of cling film plastic wrap around it, you can use it for leather texture, or you can also just roll out your sugar paste or roll fondant, put plastic wrap cling film on top of the fondant, and then when you use this, it will give you a lovely leather texture. So it's very good for a texture effect. All right, so you see how I've just blended that in, and then just using your, again, little companion tool. The companion tool is really, as I said, will always be your best friend. It has many, many uses. I use this for so many different applications now, on not just flowers, but on cakes as well. So that's how you would build up the grass. And then again, just want to let the grass dry a little bit. And so just want to let that dry a little bit. And then when I come back, I'm going to show you how to paint that and how to do the moss. So I'm going to paint the board. So I'm going to use the same green. This is the Wilton moss green color. But as I said, you know, a lot of you maybe have like rainbow dust, have a gooseberry green. And but you're going to add some vodka to this. And then I'm going to, you don't want to make it too dark, but I'm going to use just like a sort of a stippling technique. Just going to just make sure you paint up the sort of like the grass at the side here. And you see then the color will actually go into like the texture, and you're going to get this nice natural effect. Now again, you could totally airbrush this. If you feel comfortable with an airbrush, you could totally airbrush this. All right, so it's going to do that over on all of your green. And then on the cake here, you can see how I've got sort of like moss. Now there's two ways to do this, all right? So the first option is going to be to take some green royal icing. Okay, so with some green royal icing, I've just colored this also with the same sort of mossy green color. And then what I normally just do here, I'm just gonna literally use my finger. And with my finger there, so what you actually do there is you're just gonna use your, and just gonna do just like a little stipple with your finger, and you see how that's gonna give you the sort of the moss technique. Okay, so you could use, so that's, as I said, one option is using a little bit of green royal icing. So that works very well. And then the second option is to use actually ground wafer paper. Now this is wafer paper. All right, so what I've actually done here is I took some white wafer paper and I put it into a little coffee grinder, a little coffee mill, or you could use a small baby food processor. And then I just pulse it, and I've added a little bit of moss green dusting powder. So this is literally, as I said, just wafer paper. So you get this really, really fine, you can see very, very fine moss. Now we use also, like in some of my Flower Pro, if you watch my Flower Pro videos for the poppy, I use like green semolina. But semolina is going to be a little bit heavy to do the technique I'm going to show you. Now what I'm actually going to do there is I want to attach this, I'm going to use a little bit of piping gel. Okay, so where we're going to put where you want to put the moss, I'll put some here. Okay, you're going to put some piping gel just where you want the moss to go. Just a little bit of piping gel. You know, you can do this onto the roots here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pipette. All right, so pipette, what we're going to do is going to suck up some of the wafer paper into the end of the pipette. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to literally just pump that onto the side. And you see how so just suck up a little bit more, but you're just going to you see how when you push it, when you push the air, and you see how what that's going to do is going to not get everywhere, because you can imagine if you were trying to, but you literally just, as I said, using the pipette, you're just going to, and then like on here, just suck some up. And again, you're going to put this onto the, just going to pump that onto the roots here like that. Okay, and that's going to give it gives a little bit more textural detail than the royal icing. And piping gel is what we use, because then it won't obviously notice. So you choose one or the other, but just showing you how to do like moss effects. So these are, as I said, just techniques to take your cake really to the next level. And you can see here that I have my my cake now ready to be decorated. So of course we have lots of options there of what we can decorate this with. I'm actually going to be using my new Nicholas Lodge product by Katy Sue Design, the Nicholas Lodge collection, my new toadstool and mushroom mold, and some of my other elements from Flower Pro, like my ferns and poppies and different other things. So this could be done for a beautiful like outdoor barn wedding, it could be done for a groom's cake, it could be done for many different types of as I said, celebrations. And of course you can take these elements and use them however you want to in different combinations, whether it's just a cake board or whether it's a obviously a multi-tiered cake done in this theme. So I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to use my Nicholas Lodge large tree slice mold, vena, also how to use the medium tree slice and the continuous bark mold. And hope you've learned some different tips there with creating roots and also how to do grass, how to also make moss in 2 different ways. Until next time, sweet wishes. This has been Chef Nicholas Lodge. Bye.